Wow.
It's going to Oregon State next year.
Woohoo. Okay, well, I think we have everyone here, so let's get started. We are recording this meeting like we did the last one, and we'll be putting it up on the website so people, if they're curious, can find us. And this meeting is open to the public. We put it on the public meeting calendar. I don't see anybody here that's a member of the public, but hopefully we do. Alyssa, would you do me a favor and just keep an eye on the attendees and promote them as you see fit? Thank you. So we'll start, since we don't have any members of the public here, I'm not sure we need to do introductions again. What do you guys think? Do you want to do introductions? We all know who each other is.
Yeah. No, I don't want to.
Okay. We're good? Okay.
Yep.
All right, then we'll just jump right into agenda review. I will share my screen. So we may not go till 6 o'clock today, which I don't think anybody would be too broken up over, but if we do, that's fine. So we're going to start by talking about the bond and levy report and the updates that we've made since the last time you saw it. We'll talk about a few of the other items that we'll be bringing to City Council, like our audits and the cover letter that we still need to draft from this group. We have about 45 minutes of project updates, and so we'll share what's new and going on there. We thought, since we did have some extra time on this agenda, we would go over some of the kind of issues of the day that we're experiencing at the city, a little bit about the budget, and a little bit about kind of what we are doing with our homeless camping situation and how that kind of is evolving. And then we'll talk about what our future meeting topics look like. So are there any questions about any of that, or additions or anything? If not, I will jump to the bond and levy report updates. So this document looks a lot like it did the first time you saw it. I apologize, we didn't give you a ton of time to review those, but there weren't too many of them, and I'm just going to go over them real quickly here. So just scrolling through, really the only updates we made were suggestions from the board. And so there was a suggestion that we really kind of talk a little bit more about, about the positive economic impact we have had on the pandemic, because we've been able to keep our bond projects moving forward. Thought that was a really good suggestion, and with some help from our folks in community development, we were actually able to put a number to that figure. So according to one estimate, up to 291 jobs were associated with Parks and Rec bond measure projects in 2020. So those are 291 important jobs because we were able to move forward with all of our construction projects, and we're pretty proud of that. So we included that. I'm just going to scroll through quickly here. I don't think there are changes to our updates. We did add some links. I think there were good recommendations. Whenever we talk about donations, add a link. And so we have that in there now. We'll take that to heart and continue to do so. There is a good suggestion once we get into the funding, and this is with regards to the bond measure. I think it was Whitney who asked, kind of what's our rate of expenditures for the overall bond? And so we added this pie chart here. And can you guys see this okay, or should I make it bigger? I think that means
Can you
bigger.
make it a little bigger?
You bet.
Yeah.
Thanks.
We added this chart, which shows basically of the total bond measure is $39.3 million. This piece of the pie, 8.6 million, is what we have spent to date. So those are the FY19, FY20 numbers combined for bond projects, showing that we still have about 30.7 to expend. And just so you know, this does keep us on track. We're looking at being completed with our bond expenditures probably around 2026 or 2027. So that's about 8 to 9 years from start to finish. So any questions about that? I think that was a good suggestion. I like having that there. Then let's see, there was another clarification that was requested in the levy report. So we have these two tables. There's one here at the bottom of page 22, and that was related, make that a little bigger, to the budget plan. So that these are not expenditures. This is kind of when we go into FY20, what's our plan for the dollars that we're going to be spending. And this includes, these are the levy funds right here. And then this, just so you have the full picture of our parks budget, these are the non-levy funded, and then we have totals. So again, that's the adopted budget for general park maintenance, trails, natural areas, and public safety. I think that before we didn't have this labeled quite as clearly, and it was a little confusing about how it relates to the other table that we have with regards to levy funding, which is actually the expenditure side. So then this shows the expenditure side, what we spent in each one of these different categories and different expense areas. And again, our totals. So are there any questions about that? If not, that was really the only edit that we made. There, we did change the photo. Sorry, I hope I'm not making you dizzy. But this is our photo from this year, right? It will always be a marker of 2020. And unfortunately, it's looking like 2021 as well. So I'm gonna stop sharing my screen now, if I can figure out where to do that.
We may need to update that photo. Craig Carnegie has a goatee now.
Oops, don't want to do that. How do I stop sharing? Pause share. There it is. Am I sharing my screen right now?
Yeah.
Darn. Stop share. There it is. Okay. Sorry, I'm not, we use a lot of Microsoft Teams and not so much Zoom. So it's a little bit of a learning curve there. Anyways, any questions, comments about anything in the report? Does it look okay?
Mhm.
Okay. So the next thing we wanted to talk about is what we will take to City Council and when. Right now, we are tentatively scheduled to present to the City Council on either Monday, February 22nd or Wednesday, the 24th. I haven't heard anything. Have you, Craig or Craig? Has that been confirmed yet? Either one of those dates?
No, I think that's very, very tentative.
Okay, yes.
Yeah.
Mhm. So, but we are on the radar and we hope to be able to go before council soon. We like to get it there when the information is pretty fresh. So the other two pieces of information that we need for that presentation are the cover letter. And so last year, you guys crafted a cover letter. Well, I guess I should say I wrote it, but you guys were okay with it. And I'm happy to do that again this year. I looked at the letter and I have it up. I can share my screen again, hopefully more gracefully than the last time. And so what it kind of looked like last year, it's basically actually a letter to the city manager. And we talked about promises made. So these were the things that we agreed to do with the passage of the bond and levy. And then we talked about promises kept, and we just did a couple highlights from both the levy and the bond about what had been accomplished in FY19. And then we talked a little bit, because this letter was sent to the city manager in June of 2020. So we were in the pandemic at that point. So we did talk a little bit about how we were responding to that and how resiliency and recovery, how Parks and Recreation were a big part of resiliency for this community. And that was it. So it's pretty short and sweet, about a page and a half. For this year, I want to bounce this off of you and get any other ideas you might have. I think that the context maybe is just a little bit more important this year, now that we're this far into this kind of new reality for us. And so talking about the impacts of the pandemic on the usage of parks, about how it has affected our ability or inability to get into our community centers and use our pools, but nonetheless, how important our services are to the community. Some of the impacts we've seen from homeless camping and the shelter in place ordinance and how we're managing that. And also talking a little bit about some of the budget cuts that we're facing as a result of the pandemic. And we're going to give you a little bit of an update on those things a little bit later. But it just seemed to me like kind of framing the situation that we're in this year, and then kind of going into, and this is what we said that we were going to do. And yes, we still have accomplished doing that. And so kind of promises, I think promises made, promises kept can still be a theme of this letter, but just kind of wrapping it in the context of our situation a little bit more. Does anybody have any, before I kind of start on that draft, does anybody have any other ideas or reactions to that idea?
Because of the pandemic, what is the percent? What is the usage? How much has it declined, or which are the community centers obviously are down, but is there more traffic on the trails? What is going on?
Good question. I can tell you from the parks perspective, and I don't think that we have numbers unless Craig, there's.
We do have some data from another organization that showed Lane County in general parks that included Eugene, and the percentages were up close to like 150% above average. But I don't have that exact data right in front of me to share. But it's been up significantly, and just anecdotally, everything that we see, our staff is seeing, is a huge leap in use of parks, particularly our trails and paths.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And I can share a little bit, Richard, because it's kind of hard to understand what recreation is really doing with the extreme high risk of COVID right now. But essentially, we have 5 locations open that are serving children in essential childcare. We found that niche last March when we started doing emergency childcare, and we've evolved and changed things to fit the needs each rotation of each time of OHA guidelines. But we have community centers open serving childcare only. And then we're actually really fortunate to have Amazon Pool as an outdoor pool in our community, because only outdoor pools can serve people in swimming. So we have lap swimmers and swim teams very active at Amazon Pool right now. And then other than that, our programs vary based on how much we've evolved and offered virtual programs. So we might have staff in community centers that are filming people, facilitating classes that people are signing up for online. And then we're also doing things such as drive-bys, drive-throughs. We're still managing our energy program, but with people driving by and dropping off documents. We're still doing tax help by people driving by. They drop off the document on one door. We run it through the tax help, and then we give it to them on the other side of the building in another door. So there's just, we're down a lot in recreation as far as serving people, but there's still all kinds of ways we are doing things differently, I guess.
Wow, that's awesome. I mean, that's a lot of innovation.
I think innovation's a great word, Carolyn, and you know, you didn't say this in your preamble, but what I'm understanding your intimation is that this letter can start to put some breadcrumbs where we want to take them, right? Which is, this was a critical time, and this set of services was absolutely influential in our community's resilience. And so, right, we're going to look for as much support for innovation, but let's not be shy to say what needs to be said, which is, these services proved to be invaluable. And this is the time, even amongst all these challenges, to invest every bit that's possible into the resiliency and innovation of this system.
And maybe to add to what Whitney said, dovetailing that into thanking, I don't know, complimenting the voters for their hindsight and investment, understanding that we often don't know what's coming next. And because they did that, this is what they benefited from. And then as to adding on to Whitney, and we're just a small portion in, and it's going to get better and better, so people can kind of say, oh, I did that. And I think that, for any future bonds or levies, that may be helpful.
Also probably good to acknowledge the adaptability, flexibility of the staff and the teams as they went through the year in order to accommodate to the shifting environment. I think it's important to acknowledge that, particularly to the city.
Excellent. Thank you. Those are great ideas. So My plan will be to put out a draft to you and I will just email it out. And I would love to hear back from you if you have more suggestions. And we can just kind of do a round robin and then as many drafts as we need. I will make sure that you stay in the loop, but thank you. I appreciate that. So the other piece that will be included with the city council update is our audit results. And I think Cinnamon was going to just tell us a little bit about kind of what that audit looks like and where we are with that.
Hi, we are currently in the end stages of the audit. So I received a draft from Eisler CPA, who is doing our audit. And they do an audit to make sure that we are following the rules of the resolution. They're not necessarily checking for fraud or anything like that. They're just really making sure that we're following the letter of the resolution that was signed. So we got a draft today and it looks like we passed with flying colors. So we'll be getting a final report from them later on this week and we'll be able to provide it to council at our next meeting.
Awesome. Thank you, Sentiment. That was great timing to hear from them today.
Just got it today.
Awesome. And so it's funny, there kind of a lot goes into this audit. It sounds like a big deal. And then we get basically like a 2-page letter from them saying you passed, basically. So
yep, we've been working on this. The city closes their financial books in September, and then we start the audits of these types of things after the city closes their books. So we've been working on it since September and just finally got our 2-page letter today. So, yep, it's a lot of work, but we got it.
Yeah, and once we get that final letter, we will share that with all of you.
Absolutely.
Cool. Any questions about the audit?
It's counterintuitive, but a short report from the auditor is a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does make sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's move to project updates. I think we're going to start with the recreation facility projects. So I'm going to turn it over to Craig and Jeff for that.
Great, thanks, Carolyn. I'll start us off and Jeff will bat cleanup for us. So we haven't met in we've met a few months ago, so I actually have no new photos or flybys to show you the projects at Campbell and Echo Hollow Pool. So you'll just have to hear me out, so to speak. I do want to just share essentially, as we're winding down into the last few months of these projects and we're getting close to substantial completion. I'll tell you, it feels odd to be getting close and see these buildings evolve and these beautiful renovations come to life, but we're probably not going to be able to showcase them at this time, especially Campbell. And so it's kind of odd. I talked to our staff and I feel like they're kids standing in front of a Christmas tree and there's a brand new bike in that Christmas tree under that or near that Christmas tree and they won't be able to ride it for a while. So it's an interesting thing going on right now with these buildings nearing completion and how we're going to use them in the future. So I know Ben Kirkfeld is going to be working on how we do some unique type of grand openings, so to speak, as we introduce them to the public. But so to start with Campbell, again, the interior new wing and the renovation of the old wing is about 95% complete. It's right there on the brink. What the work is going on now is all pretty much on the exterior. The entry plazas, the main entry plaza, the other plazas on the east side of the building, and then the the exit area and the landscaping on the river side of the building. So it's almost there. It's scheduled for substantial completion in early to mid-March. Again, we're not in a super big rush. We project that maybe we'll start having people in the building at the start of the summer based on dropping to a lower risk level of COVID and be able to do some things there. In the meantime, as we mentioned earlier, Richard, we're still doing virtual health programs out of that facility with staff. We're still offering our energy assistance program and our tax support program. And Campbell Center has adapted, and I don't know, historically, they always offer a Wednesday lunch bunch. And it packs the main hall with 70, 80 people, and they love socializing. So they're doing monthly drive-by lunches for the last few months, and it's really drawing a lot of people. What we realize as Campbell is that everybody who drives by, the patrons that are able to drive by, really are anxious to get inside the building and socialize. There's really a gap in their social activities without having Campbell online. And our staff are feeling that. They actually don't want to drive off. They want to park and stay. So anyway, Campbell is very, very close, and hopefully we'll be able to utilize it sometime in late spring or summer.
Great. Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Is there any talk about what kind of protocols, like if you have a vaccination card, or, what is the criteria? I mean, I know it's early, but do you have?
That is the exact question on our mind right now is as we ramped up with COVID and as we went through different phases and guidelines, what will be the guidelines for those who have been vaccinated? And those have not come forth from our Oregon Health Authority, or OHA, or anyone at this time. So it'll be interesting, especially with a facility like Campbell, because Campbell serves generally the older population, 50 and above. And so there have been previous restrictions on that type of service with OHA. So, but at the same time, we don't want to restrict people's right to go do things based on their own choice. But we're waiting to see what guidelines might happen with vaccinated people. It's going to be hard because I understand everybody essentially needs to be vaccinated if they're going to be there. And so we don't know yet, Richard. I guess the short answer is we don't know that type of guideline on the ramp back up to operating. So,
thanks.
Yep. And then other questions about Campbell? Okay. So Echo Hollow Pool. Again, I'm glad I stated it earlier that we do have Amazon Pool, which is still operating right now. At Echo Hollow, I think you saw in the flyby, both new pools have been poured, and they're starting to do the tile work around the edges and adding some of the more artistic pieces to it. The maintenance space is completed. The staff offices are in progress, the new lobby, and then of course the new locker rooms are taking shape. So there's still a lot of work to be done, but the substantial completion of that is targeted for April 1st, which is actually good because we were always trying to reopen to try to capture the high school swim season. And that's unique because the Oregon State Athletic Association have shifted all high school sports, and the high school swim competition is supposed to be in May and June. So we should be open for it. The benefit of Echo Hollow Pool, again, like Amazon, is one of the tanks is outdoors. And so once we open that puppy on April 1st, we will be able to, even at extreme high risk, allow people to swim one person per lane or two people per lane if they're in a club sport in Echo Hollow. So again, April 1st is our target date. And we're hoping to hit that date and then activate it as soon as possible after that, at least part of it. Now, we're definitely hoping this new recreation pool out there in the Bethel area is going to be really nice. It's going to be Amazon West. And what we don't know is if we'll be able to activate a fully activated pool by July, by the heat. And we'll see. We'll see what that looks like. It's looking kind of doubtful based on the rollout of the vaccine, but we'll see what happens. May end up having to go the whole summer with a very limited capacity at Echo Hollow. But bottom line, both those facilities are looking great, and we're getting ready to ramp them up. So as soon as Echo opens, then we'll be going in on construction at Sheldon. And with that, I'll hand it off to Jeff if he wants to add anything else about Campbell Echo, and then introduce where we're at with Sheldon.
Thanks, Greg. I think you covered it well. I guess the only thing I would add to the Campbell and Echo projects, we've been able to do a pretty good job of, a really good job of keeping both of those projects within budget as we had originally projected. So we're super excited about that. And frankly, we ran into a lot of unknown conditions and challenges, especially with Campbell, some contaminated soil and bedrock and a variety of things. And so super excited we've been able to bring both of those projects in where we expected. The super exciting news is we had the bids come in. So the bids closed for Sheldon Pool on about 2 weeks ago today. I believe we had 4 or 5, maybe 4 bids. One of them was non-responsive, if I remember right. And so there was actually a lot of interest in that project, similar to Echo Hollow, which was exciting. Our construction estimates were right around 7 million, fully loaded. That's, that pushes us over 10 million project-wise, but just for construction alone, our estimator was looking at around 7 million. We were trying to play it pretty conservative. We had other goals in the project that we were trying to achieve on top of just meeting the base bid. And so we had, probably 5 or 6 alternate prices in that bid. So if the bids came in higher than we projected, we had some flexibility around, do we pick this item or do we not pick a certain item? And so the bids came in. The low was actually 5.9 million, which was substantially lower than we had projected, at least with our conservative estimates. And so we were thrilled with the results, and we're able to exercise every one of the alternates. And so we're able to get everything we were hoping for in the base bid and the contract as we go forward. And we actually had a second bid when you count all the alternates that was within like $12,000. So we were super excited about that. What that means for the project is that we're, obviously the main piece of that was expanding the facility to add the warm water vortex pool, but we had a lot of, we had some what we call pool toys and some features that were alternates. We're able to get those in. We had a sauna that's added into the project for sure. And then there were a couple other ones that were exciting, especially for facilities. We're able to re-roof the building, which we were really hoping to do, which it needs to be done, but it was something we were considering pausing on, but we were able to add that into the project. And then another one is a new heat pump system. And so similar to Echo Hollow, we're able to move away from natural gas as the primary fuel source for that facility and implement a heat pump, which is going to help reduce not only energy use, but also our carbon footprint by not burning natural gas. And so it's hard to explain it over Zoom, but we're extremely excited and thrilled. And it's just kind of a nice closure to these first 3 projects and a good team effort with recreation. And we're just really, really excited about it. And so that project will basically kick off when Echo Hollow is complete. The facility is closed right now because of COVID, and so there's kind of some flexibility around that. We aren't sure if it will be able to open or not at this point. If it doesn't, then it'll probably remain closed until that project's complete. But excited about it.
I can add, Jeff, it's a jacuzzi we're getting and not a sauna.
Thank you, thank you.
We had a jacuzzi put in at Amazon in 2000, a jacuzzi put in at Echo in 2004, and people in the Sheldon area have been wanting a jacuzzi for the last 15 years, and finally it's arrived. We
knew that it wasn't really an option not to have it. We we would have the community hot after us if we didn't get that in. But we were able to itemize it as just one of the features, and so we're excited about it. Any questions? I should add the construction will last about, I think it was projected for 9 months. It might go a little longer than that, where we're looking. So, you know, beginning of next year is probably realistic when that project will be complete.
Great. That is such good news.
Thanks, Carolyn.
Yeah. I will take over for the park project update. And I do have some imagery to share. There's just so many projects going on that it's easiest if I do it in a PowerPoint. Before I do that, Molly, did you just have your hand raised? I can't hear you. Oh, yes.
I was curious if y'all have seen any changes to cost of construction associated with COVID. Are contractors having to take extra precautions? Are things, you know, taking longer? I mean, it seems like everything is on time and on budget, but I'm just curious if y'all have seen anything from contractors, including in bids for projects that haven't begun yet.
I bet Emily can add to this too, but yeah, we've heard, at least anecdotally, from contractors that the safety precautions have definitely affected bids. Also, we've had to stagger more work so we don't have people working on sites at the same time. And so it's been kind of funny because we've seen, in some ways, we've heard that there's been a little bit of a slowing of certain things, but then because of COVID and those extra precautions, it seems to have evened out. You know, our estimates were conservative on Sheldon, but we also saw a lot of competition. And so I think that's a really good sign that people are thinking ahead that, you know, the economy might be slowing down a little bit. And so they see a year-long project and we're seeing quite a bit of interest in it. And so that was extremely positive for our construction projects. But it kind of depends on what the type of work is as well. So we've seen certain projects still coming in extremely high, especially around HVAC. It seems to be expensive right now. So.
Yeah, and for us, we're mostly working outside. So I think, you know, I guess I'll say it's been kind of hard to get our guys to put masks on when they're working closely with each other. But I think, you know, some rulemaking finally came down within the contracting sector. So I think it's pretty different if you're working on a building that you're constructing, you're kind of working inside. And so, yeah, you have to kind of rotate people through it. In our case, we're working across, you know, 3.5, 4 acres, at least at the riverfront. And so generally, you know, people are mostly outside and it's been okay. And we bid that project a year ago. So it'll be curious to see how our bids come in this spring, and we'll certainly keep you posted on that for the work that's coming forward.
Thanks, Jeff and Emily. Any other questions? Okay. Okay, so I wanted to take this map that shows all of our bond measure projects and just kind of overlay where our active projects are to kind of get a geographic idea of where we're working. And so I played around with some animation a little bit here. And so let's see, how do I do this? Click. There, okay. Did you see those arrows fly in? I'll do it one more time. So those blue arrows, blue and white arrows that just flew in are projects that are either completed or currently under construction. And then there's a second group of projects here those are the orange and white projects. Those are projects that are going to begin construction this year in 2021. And then our final grouping of projects are projects that will be in some kind of planning or design this year. So there's those projects. Whoops, hold on, sorry, didn't mean to do that. So I don't know how to get that out of the way. Anyways, you can see that there's a really good distribution. We are doing projects all throughout the community. We are currently underway with 65% of the bond measure projects. And as I mentioned before, we're on track for completion around 2026 or 2027. So I thought I would just go through some of the highlights. So of those projects that are either constructed or in construction, this is a list of them. Tugman, which was our first project done back in 2019, turf fields replacement, Amazon running trail, some lighting, downtown riverfront, and then the rec projects that you already heard about. And I thought I would just show you some imagery. So this is the new field that we have over at ATA. That's the Arts and Technology Academy. You may not know that we have a partnership with both 4J and Bethel School District with all of their artificial turf fields. We split costs with them, both on the original development and in any kind of upkeep of those fields. And that allows the community to have use of these fields as well as the students. And so it's been a good partnership. But about every 10 years, those carpets need to be replaced. So the carpet is that green that we're looking at here. And it costs about $500,000. And we have a lot of these fields throughout the community now. So it's this ongoing expense that we really do need to keep up with. Now, our share is only half. And so for every field that gets replaced, we pay approximately $250,000. And so this year through the bond, we did 4 fields at ATA, Meadowview and Willamette, which are both in Bethel, and then Spencer Butte, which is another 4J field. This project is the Amazon running trail. And this was completed about a month ago. And let me tell you, just the love keeps pouring in for this project. It's really been popular. I have a few more photos from it. So this is a great photo. It shows this new shelter that we built. This used to be just an old LTD bus shelter that they were going to throw away, and we took, and it's a great place for people to meet, maybe hang up an extra layer or change into their shoes. This photo also shows the 2 different types of lighting that we have on this trail. So on the right-hand side, we have, tall, more standard pole lights. And on the left-hand side, we have these shorter, what we call bollard lights. And we put the bollard lights on this side of the trail because it's in between the Ash Grove and Amazon Creek, and it has a really more sensitive and high value habitat there. And so this was really a pilot project for us to try this form of lighting, which we haven't done before, and see if it does have less of an impact on the natural resources, and also to see how well it performs, how well it stands up to vandalism. And I can tell you right now that to walk or run along there in the evening when those lights are on is really a magical experience. It's really awesome. So we're excited about that. Let's see, we also put in some new mileage markers. Those just went in on Friday, and they are really great. And I love that picture because Spencer Butte's in the background. This is an example of the lights on at night. It's not a very good image, but it does show how the light is really focused on the trail, and it really doesn't spill out beyond the trail into the natural areas or up into the sky. And so this is really important because this is one of our first lighting projects. We're doing a lot more lighting projects with the bond, also in sensitive natural areas. And so it's really important for us to show that we can really direct that lighting to only where we want it to be and not negatively impact the dark skies or those natural habitats. This is another lighting project that is currently under construction. So this is a map of the entire Route 16 Riverbank path. But if you can see my cursor up in the left-hand corner, the West Bank path is what we are currently lighting. So this entire blue section of the path has never been lit before. And so we are currently in a project to light that entire path. It starts at Maury Jacobs Park. That's where this is right here. And it goes north up to Formack Lane, which is where the trail kind of pops out onto the residential streets. It's almost 2 miles of trail that is getting new lighting. This is an area that has a lot of natural resource values, and the community there is really interested in preserving those. So that, again, this is why it's so important that our lighting projects are done really carefully and with the newest technology to make sure that we're really keeping the light where we want it and not where we don't want it. This is also a project under construction that you have heard about before, the downtown riverfront project. And I think at our last meeting, we actually, we did a drone fly through. So we're not going to show you the whole park today, but I wanted to show a couple slides of some interesting and fun stuff and see if Emily could share with us. And I'll advance for you if you let me know.
Great, I'll let you know. I'll let you know. Okay, so what we're going to share about today is actually this connection to downtown. So it's really starting to take shape. So Fifth Avenue is really now the connection from downtown all the way down to the riverfront. So over here, you probably can't see my cursor, so I'm
showing it.
Okay, yeah, so there it is. You can see the Fifth Street Market up in the upper right corner up there, and then you can you'll be able to come straight down, cross the rail tracks and come straight down Fifth to get all the way down to the Fifth Street overlook. And that will probably be the most sort of significant overlook in the park. There's several, if you remember from my last presentation. But this one has a really big art piece that we're going to be installing, and I think it'll be a really great destination point and a sort of iconic marker of the park. Do you want to advance it, Carolyn? So we're calling it an art pavilion, but it's basically it's this metal work that hangs on a really simple steel structure. It's about 65 1 foot wide by maybe 20 to 30 foot wide stainless steel metal ribbons. In this image, they look sort of thin and beautiful, and in real life, I'll show you in a minute kind of how they're being manufactured. But they make this wave that's really reflective underneath, so you can see other people. And the idea is that this can also be then programmed as you know, for other art forms. So maybe there's sculpture, or maybe there's a movie night, so we have it so you can hang things from it, or there's, you know, live performance, whatever. But and then ideally we can also see the, you know, the water and reflected in these. And the shape of it is actually the topographical shape of the rivers, the bottom of the river, right in front of the overlook. So this overlook's really amazing. It's gonna, you know, the walls that you saw in the last photo, the platform will extend another 6 to 8 feet out beyond those walls. So you really feel like you're over the river. So do you want to go to the next slide, Carolyn? So we have, so this piece was designed by Jill Anholt, who is the artist sub-consultant on our design team from Walker Macy. So it's great to have her integrated into the project. And she did a lot of work with the public to talk about what kind of art do you want to have on the site. And they said, we want iconic art, and we want it integrated art and interpretive art. So we've done both of those. And this is the iconic art piece. And so it's being fabricated in Seattle by a company called Fabrication Specialties. And they've been working on this for several months now. And these are the ribbons starting to take shape. And then on the bottom of them will be the highly polished metal, and the top will just be regular metal. But then these will each hang from that steel structure. So it's super exciting to get these photographs. It's too bad we can't go see them in person. Our artist is actually Canadian, and she can't get out of the country to come and like actually look at these pieces in Seattle because the border's closed. So we're kind of having to rely on these sort of digital images. But in any case, it's a real statement for Eugene to have an art piece this big. And I think it's going to be really, it's going to be amazing. It's going to be a real statement for our community. So any questions about that? I can answer.
Thank you, Emily.
Sure.
By the way, when I'm sharing my screen, I can't see the chat or hands up. So if anybody sees something that, please facilitate that. So those are projects that are currently under construction. And now I want to highlight a couple of projects that will be going into construction in 2021. This is the full list. I'm not going to talk about all of those, but it's going to be a really big construction year for us. I mean, we've got Delta Ponds, Stryker Field, which is a new park, Berkeley Park, which is a renovation. We're rebuilding tennis courts at Churchill High School. We're rewilding Amazon Creek. I'll tell you what that means. More lighting projects. And plus we also have funding through the bond to do some restroom renovations. And we're doing our first one at Monroe Park, hopefully this year. And you already heard about Sheldon. So Delta Ponds is a wonderful place with a trail that goes around the ponds. And right now there's a gap in the trail. It's it's supposed to be a 1 mile long loop, but there's one gap in the trail, which is at the mouth of Dedrick Slough. And so we are building a bridge over Dedrick Slough, looking to start that this year. It will be a lovely bridge and a really accessible place to find nature right in the city. If you've been out to Delta Ponds already, you know it's a favorite of birders and people in the area. But having this trail actually loop now instead of just kind of going out and having to turn around and come back is going to be really amazing. So super excited about that. That project's been a long time in the making. And then this is Stryker Field. This is the plan for Stryker Field, which will be our kind of one of our first new park projects besides the downtown riverfront. And this is a 8-acre kind of neighborhood community park hybrid up in northeast Eugene, which should, we're at about 60% construction drawings right now, and should be going out to bid this spring. So really excited about a nice large playground, some court sports, picnic shelter, small parking lot, performance area for this part of town that really doesn't have a larger park like this for the community to gather. So that's exciting. As is the Amazon rewilding project, which is for this portion of Amazon Creek that currently exists between 24th Avenue and 19th Avenue. And so it's in this concrete lined channel, and we are going to be breaking it free of this concrete lined channel and just restoring it more in the form of a natural creek bed. We own a fair amount of property on either side of the creek here. Amazon Parkway is right up here. So the creek kind of parallels the parkway there, but we have a significant amount of land. So we'll be meandering the creek bed within that area between 24th and 19th. So this is mostly a stormwater funded project because it's really good for water quality, but we do have a little bit of bond funding in there as well. And then just wanted to talk about the projects that we're just getting underway or are moving into the design phase. So we have a number of them, starting with Santa Clara, the Suzanne Arley Ridgeline Trail Extension, and then Maddie Reynolds, MLK Jr., and Golden Gardens, which we'll just be starting the planning for this year. So first, the Santa Clara Community Park. We just really wrapped up a majority of the community engagement for this project in December. We had to transition to a Zoom public engagement format for this project, and we learned a lot in the process, and I think we were pretty successful at it. But this shows the full master plan for that park. And you can see the park is kind of in two different sections, north and south. The south area, this area down here, will be the future home of Santa Clara Community Center and Pool. And so we made sure to design that into this park, obviously, even though it's a couple decades away, likely, before we can afford to build it. But we will be building a good portion of the community park facilities that are in the north section of the site. But we are only considering this phase one. And so our phase one development plan is what we currently have funding to build. And so you'll see in the south here, before that community and center and pool get built, we will have a large interim dog park. Once the center and pool are built, the dog park will be moved to the north here and be made small, a little bit smaller. There is a nice bridge that connects the south and the north parts of the park here, because there's a little remnant waterway that goes through here. This is a really beautiful site. It's a 35-acre site. And then up in this area, we will have a nice large playground with irrigated lawn, restroom, picnic shelters, and a schoolhouse that we're currently working with the community organization. It's a historic schoolhouse. They would like to transform that into a kind of interim community center. So we're currently working with them to try to facilitate that happening. There's a few other, and then a lot of trails. People were really interested in natural areas and trails up here. So we have a lot of trails. And then some things that will happen in phase two will be some of the courts, like pickleball court, skate park, basketball court, and a community garden that we didn't quite have the funding for in this phase, but we hope to come back to within 10 years for phase two. So that's Santa Clara Community Park, which will be going through the design construction document phase this year, and then construction in 2022. We're also planning the extension of the Ridgeline Trail through Suzanne Arley Park. This is a picture of that park, which is, I think it's almost a 500-acre park. Is that right, Emily?
Sounds right.
Yeah, I think so. It is now our largest park. It used to be Alton Baker Park, which is about 400. And Suzanne Arley is just a gorgeous, gorgeous piece of property. And the Ridgeline Trail will connect off of Mount Baldy and kind of drop off Mount Baldy and head east just to the south of Lane Community College. And that trail will be accessible for both hikers and mountain bikers, which is huge because the mountain biking community in Eugene is getting really restless for some trails of their own. So that's another eagerly awaited project.
Question for you on that.
Yes, please.
Can you actually go out and hike some of the dirt roads and stuff on that, or is it fenced off, or is it okay to go out there?
It is okay to go out there.
Okay.
You just have to know kind of where to access it. And so there is access from Lane Community College, kind of if you go to the far southeast corner of their parking lot. I think you can find some signage from there. I access it from the end of Sharon Road. So you kind of go out through Goshen, and there's a little street called Sharon that basically dead ends into Arley. And that's a wonderful place to access it from. And I would definitely recommend folks to go out there. There's not a developed parking lot. You just kind of have to park along the side of the road if you go to the end of Sharon, but that's a great place to enter too.
Great, thanks.
Yeah. And even though it's not open and there aren't developed trails or trailheads out there, there's more and more people finding their way there. And certainly the mountain bikers are there as well. I was just out there this weekend. So then our projects that are coming up, this is Maddie Reynolds Park. It's an undeveloped park in Southwest Eugene. It's about 5 acres. It's named for Maddie Reynolds of the Reynolds family, which was one of the first Black families in Eugene and has a long history here in this area. And so we're thrilled to have that park named for Maddie and to get this project underway. And so this picture was taken just a week ago, Monday, on Martin Luther King Jr. Day, where we had a big community tree planting out there. And it was really awesome to get a bunch of trees in the ground, kind of even ahead of the planning for this park, just to give those trees a head start. And and it's along Amazon Creek, so we planted trees along the creek and then along one of the property boundaries, which is adjacent to an apartment complex. So we'll be starting the community engagement process for Maddie Reynolds this year. Oh, I wasn't ready for that one yet. And then Martin Luther King Jr. Park will also be renovated. And so we'll be doing the planning process for that park this year as well. And we actually intentionally decided to run the Maddie Reynolds and the MLK Jr. Park together because we do want to do a significant amount of outreach and have a focus group with the BIPOC community, make sure that we are kind of being, honoring people's time and being efficient with people's time. And so we wanted to bring both those parks together and kind of look at them comprehensively and kind of think about what are the stories of Black community members in Eugene that we want to tell in those sites, and just instead of a piecemeal approach, kind of have a little bit more of a holistic approach. So we're really excited to get that underway. And then the last project that we're going to be getting underway in 2021 is Golden Gardens, and it's a sports complex, but I don't have any plans that I can show yet of the sports complex, but we do have Western pond turtles out there. And this spring, we had 18 pond turtles hatch out there, which is a really big deal, considering that there's maybe like 50 pond turtles in the entire known population of Western pond turtles in this area. So we've been working really hard to help that population, and our ecologist Lori Holtz has just done a fabulous job. So, and what we love about this site is that we can have pond turtles and a sports complex because it's that big. And so we're looking at having a nice buffer between the natural habitat and the sports fields. And I think it's just going to be an amazing kind of one of a kind sports complex in the nation, really. So with that, I'll stop sharing my screen and see if anybody has any questions.
Well, I'll just say that picture of the turtles is adorable. It is so cute.
Can you imagine? Just they're so tiny.
Yeah. I mean, how many were in that hand? Like 5 or 6?
Oh gosh, I don't know. Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that is so cute.
Yeah.
And it's great to hear that the population is sort of rebounding in a very dramatic way.
Yeah, it is. Now, we can't say if all of those babies are still alive. They have a pretty precarious early life, but they did hatch.
That's great.
So that's progress.
Yeah.
Okay. And actually, Molly, while I'm thinking of it, I wanted to mention to you that we have been, your comments about dog parks that you made at our last meeting have resonated, and we've kind of mentioned them a couple times, but I really want to schedule some time for us to talk. And so I'm going to follow up with you on that.
Sure. Yeah, great.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Chris and Kelly, do you want to take over for a Levy report?
Sure, I'll start and turn it over to Kelly. But first I want to say what an exciting act to follow, from jacuzzis to signature art pieces to new parks, and much overdue recognition. So, congratulations. It's fun to be a part of. So early at the start of the meeting, the pandemic was mentioned, and I heard some words, innovation, adapting, and then valuable. And that certainly represents this group and the operations group that I work with all the time, that is primarily responsible for maintaining all these great assets. And so some of the things that I'll just go over fairly quickly is on the developed park side. For future park development, we have our 2 limited duration employees that will help out significantly with the Riverfront Park System, the soon to be renamed Stryker Field, and then Santa Clara Community Park. So that's invaluable for our staff to have that support. And as part of that support, we're also in the process of purchasing an electric vehicle that will help us in the Riverfront Corridor and some of the other systems. And that's an important part of being able to accomplish what we need there, is to not only staff up, but to have the right equipment in place. And an electric vehicle is a perfect fit for those spaces. And Craig mentioned some outside data from Google on park usage, which, anecdotally in Lane County was up, I think about 150%. And our trail system is just being really heavily used. And staff has been really active and working with Kelly's team, who will go next, about placing signage and making sure that people are aware of the CDC guidelines so we can keep those facilities open. And also, just our increase in use has driven our garbage collection as well. As you can imagine, without people traveling and being inside, where else can they really go? Unfortunately, some people just can't quite get things in the garbage can, but we're working on that every day. And then our natural areas also have expanded garbage collection service and maintenance at our trailheads that are being really heavily used at the time. And then on the contracting front, we're doing quite a bit of tree work with the levy money. We have a lot of trees in Eugene, not only in our developed park system, but in the natural areas. And that extra revenue that we have is allowing us to take care of some long overdue tree work. And staff is in the process of gathering a list of what's to come in FY22 and the remainder of FY21, actually. So that's been exciting. And then our illicit activities team has been, as you can imagine, with our in-house problem, really busy working with Kelly's team and EPD to ensure that we're doing the best job we can at this time in the park system. And what I'm really looking forward to is the springtime, where we'll open our seasonal restrooms and we'll bring on a swing shift crew. COVID has made it somewhat challenging to have a full complement of seasonal employees at this time, just due to the amount of vehicles and staffing space with the CDC guidelines. But as soon as it gets a little bit lighter, we'll be putting on a swing shift crew because that works in those guidelines. And we also have a lot of usage at night in the afternoon, as you can imagine, when people get off work and the days start getting longer. And so with that, any questions before I turn it over to our super valuable partner, which is Kelly's group? We couldn't, at least my group, couldn't do this without her team. We work together very closely to make our park system successful.
Thanks, Chris. The only thing I really have to add around Levy work is we are hiring a third park ambassador limited duration position to work in our parks and natural areas. And then we're also looking at maybe refocusing that particular hire ultimately to just be really focused on camping in our park system. And we'll talk a little bit more about some of the things that have changed and why kind of redirecting that work towards camping is probably a good decision at this point. I don't think I have anything else to add.
Thanks, Kelly and Chris. Well, I went super long, and so I'm glad that others were brief because we're right on track. So now, actually, I think I'll turn it over to Craig to give us some updates around budget and camping issues.
Okay, thank you, Carolyn. I just saw that we had a little bit extra time on the agenda, so I thought it would be important to share some of this information with you all. And just a little precursor, the first part of this program was the glamorous part, and this is more of the nitty-gritty stuff. So I hope you guys can bear with me just for a few minutes, and Kelly's going to help out as well. But just wanted to give you an update as far as the budget. You saw some of the information around our levy and how we're using levy dollars and obviously in combination with other operational dollars to get all of the work that we need to get done. And the levy originally was really meant to close a budget gap that was created during our last recession. It had been going on for a number of years where our operating dollars had gone down and we just weren't really quite able to take care of the park system in the way that we wanted to and needed to. And so the levy was meant to help close that gap, and it was also meant to help enhance services. However, our current fiscal picture has changed a little bit, as was alluded to earlier, and it basically shows us losing some ground in our baseline funding and having to rely even more on the levy. So right now we've had a series of general fund reductions in this current fiscal year, as well as planning for reductions in next fiscal year. And we're expecting additional reductions in fiscal year 23. And combination, these reductions are in the multiples of hundreds of thousands of dollars. So we also have other dedicated funding besides just a general fund. We have stormwater funding. We also have road fund that we use in combination again with some of our operating dollars. And we're seeing reduced spending targets in those dedicated funds, both this fiscal year and likely next as well. So all of that means, we've got a little bit of a shrinking pool of funds to use to operate and maintain our park system. And so our gap has basically started to grow a little bit more, and our levy funds are even more critical now than they were previously, and we're having to stretch those levy funds further and further. So I think I mentioned at the last time we all met that we were going to need to start talking about the next levy, which is up in, this current levy is up in 23. So we'll be looking for a possible new renewed levy in around 22 or 23. We'll also be looking at having conversations around finding sustainable funding mechanisms soon so that we may not have to rely on a levy. But if we don't get there with that funding mechanism, it's going to be even more important for us to go back out for an operating levy. And it will likely be a lot larger of an operating levy than the current one that we have. I also just want to give a kudos to our Eugene Parks Foundation partners. They're a nonprofit organization that has been around for quite a while in Eugene, helping us find additional resources for capital projects in particular. In fact, Scott is on that board, and we've worked closely with Scott to try to build that board's and that foundation's capacity to help us grow their ability to bring in more resources so that we can refresh and renew our park infrastructure, which actually has an overall operating and maintenance savings. Because if you get rid of the old stuff, you get some new stuff in there, and it just doesn't cost as much to maintain, at least in the first interim period. So it's been exciting and great to work with Scott on that piece of work that we're doing around resource development. And so now I'm going to jump over to the other non-glamorous part of the parks work that we do.
Before we do that, Craig, I want to say thanks for the plug for Eugene Parks Foundation. I appreciate it. Yeah, we've had Kelly, Craig, there's been a lot of folks at the city we work closely with. And if you're not familiar with the organization, it's been around for almost 15 years, done a lot of great things. It's been an all volunteer board, but we're trying to grow the capacity of the board so we can do more. We all know that there's limited things that the city can do, right? They have a limited budget, but there's a lot more need. So we're very appreciative of the city's support of what we're doing and hope to continue to grow our capacity so we can kind of help make a difference on our side. So thanks again, Craig.
Yeah, absolutely, Scott. Thank you. And again, I mean, we've got some new board members that are really exciting to have on board as well. And I think they're going to do some great things with our foundation. So I guess I was talking rather fast, which I oftentimes do, but I will stop there for a moment to see if anybody has any questions on what I just mentioned.
Craig, this is Jill. So you said sustainable funding options. Do you have some in mind, or what are those?
We did some research on this prior to the last time we went out for the levy and for the bond. So we actually have kind of a menu of different options. And I without going into them any further right now, we're just looking internally how we might be able to generate additional resources without going out to such as a levy. And we can possibly share some of those options with you after we have some more conversations, maybe at the next meeting, if you'd like.
Yeah, thank you.
Craig, based on the timeline, what is sort of a drop dead date where you have to make the decision that it's going to be a levy proposal or not?
Well, in talking with our finance folks, I mean, we would need to go out to the levy in either 22 or back in 23. So, we would probably need 3 to 5 months minimum lead time, knowing that we were going to be going out with the levy in order to get that all organized and get it on the ballot and stuff. So I probably more like 6 months lead time. Any other questions? Carolyn, I can't see everybody on my gallery. I don't know if you can see any hands or anything like that.
I am not seeing, oh, nope. No hands.
It'll be here before we know it is the answer, right?
For sure,
That's
for
correct.
sure. Yeah. Okay, so then we'll jump over to homeless COVID camping. And I believe we've talked a little bit about, the challenges around homeless camping throughout our park system, which were pretty substantial prior to COVID. And obviously our park ambassador program and our illicit activities team, we were working with EPD. We were starting to get a handle and get a rhythm to dealing with camping and really starting to make some progress and see some significant efforts to clean up our parks. However, COVID hit and we had a shelter in place situation where we had dispersed camping throughout the park system that remained there for several months. And we realized we had a pretty big mess on our hands. And so we ended up needing to, once we went into phase 2 of COVID, we went in and ended up having to clean out a lot of those camps and still deal with them throughout the summertime. But then the wildfires hit and we had another temporary kind of shelter in place, I guess, for a shorter period of time, but that created some pretty large chronic camping situations as well that we had to clean out. And so, the political landscape has changed quite a bit too. And we have a lot more people that have been advocating for the homeless community and not to do these, what folks are calling sweeps, and to kind of let people camp in the parks, in the right of way, and elsewhere in the city. And we're realizing that we've had to change our tactics a little bit in order to accommodate some of this camping, especially with the recent COVID surge that we saw start back in late November, December. And obviously we were also in the news recently about these COVID variants that are happening. So we have essentially temporarily lifted the camping ban in some areas of parks due to COVID. And you may have seen that article in the Register Guard over the weekend, where there was a press release. And I just want to walk through quickly where camping is not allowed in the park system. Sorry, I just heard myself in stereo there. So there is no camping that is allowed in neighborhood parks. There's no camping allowed in riparian areas, such as along the Willamette River. There's no camping allowed in wetlands and our sensitive natural areas. Our city's vegetated stormwater facilities that are designed to filter and clean water. We also have 300-foot barriers or buffers, excuse me, for playgrounds, sports courts, park shelters, picnic shelters, and the City of Eugene's rest stop program and microsite locations. And then we also have a 50-foot buffer around private property. And so in all these areas where you're not supposed to be, which we call basically like no-go areas, we have a 24-hour notice of cleanup, which requires, basically tells them you've got 24 hours to vacate this area. For the COVID-19 areas that we are allowing temporary camping in parks, basically these camps are intended to support the public health and safety of the public, but also as well as the campers by requiring them to follow physical distancing guidelines. So tents are supposed to be 12 feet apart from individuals in order for them to reasonably maintain 6 feet of distance from other camps and their property at all times. Camps are supposed to keep free of blocking sidewalks or paths, transit stations, restrooms, or building entrances. They're supposed to maintain their camps to be clean and healthy with no significant garbage or debris. The camp is supposed to be safe with no evidence of drug use or other hazards or other safety issues in the camps. And so basically there's no verified reports of criminal behavior from EPD. Campsites are not supposed to be negatively impacting properties adjacent to parks. And examples of that would be like including blocking sidewalks, loud noise, aggressive dogs, threatening behavior, public indecency. And then campsites are not supposed to be negatively affecting nearby business activities. And similar examples to what I just gave you, including blocking sidewalks, obviously threatening behavior and such. And then campsites are not supposed to be disturbing vegetation, and they're not supposed to be damaging or preventing maintenance of park infrastructure. And so how we respond to these camps is we're providing folks that are not in compliance with those criteria a 48-hour warning, a notice basically that they're not meeting this criteria, and we'll let them know which criteria they're not meeting. And we're giving them a temporary period of time to basically get into compliance. And we also are notifying social services and our city outreach team about this issue in this area and hoping that those folks will help these camps get into compliance. And then if the site does get into compliance, it'll be allowed to remain. But if the criteria have not been met after that 48-hour period, then we'll give them a 24-hour notice to vacate, and then we'll have to go back in and enforce if they aren't gone at that time. So that's the latest mouthful of information around homeless camping and some of the temporary camps that you might be seeing in a few park areas in town. And Kelly, I don't know if you have any more that you'd like to add to that or give an update on WJ.
Just that as the city has adjusted its policies, we are trying to get input from various groups. There was a meeting this morning with different advocate groups and kind of got to hear their feedback on our new guidelines. And then, we also wanted to include folks like you on this committee, and we'll probably be running this by the Eugene Parks Foundation, et cetera. And so just want to make sure that you had kind of a better briefing on what's happening. And then, we do have a property that we manage, but is actually owned by another agency. For example, Washington Jefferson Park is owned by the Oregon Department of Transportation, and they have their own rules around how camping works there, and they have a pretty long window for when you can ask a camper to move for not complying with stay-in-place orders. And so the situation at WJ is, it kind of grew to 50 camps, and then as of today, in the last week, it's 70 camps, and it just kind of continues to grow. And so we're trying to kind of catch up by making sure we have enough restrooms and hand washing stations, and park staff are going by Monday through Friday and picking up folks' garbage. And we try to figure out ways to really help people understand how they need to comply. And I guess today I just, we're really managing this massive urban camp in Eugene. And this is an area that I certainly don't have expertise in, but we're learning how do we do this, and how do we mobilize to make sure that we're doing this in a way that helps people stay safe that are camping there, and then also be a good neighbor to the surrounding residents and businesses. And so I would say we're in a mode right now of really trying to hustle to figure out how we can just, really realize this situation and make sure we're providing the right management and oversight and support right now.
So WJ looks a little bit different than what some of the criteria that I just mentioned, just because of the ODOT posting requirements. If you aren't in compliance, you actually have 10 days posting there. And so it's a little bit more of a challenging environment, but surprisingly, a lot of the campers have actually complied, but it's just some of the folks that haven't or refuse to that are creating some challenges over there at WJ right now. Oh, and just by the way, WJ Section 1, which is area around the skate bowl, the skate park, and the basketball courts, that's an area that we considered essentially kind of more like a neighborhood park, and that's a no camping area at all. So it's basically the southern portions of WJ, closer to 5th Street, across from the railroad tracks over by 6th and 7th Street. So I think Molly had a question.
Yeah, I think Kelly and you, Craig, also talked about this, but I'm kind of, Craig, when you were talking about the different places that you can camp, and this is a temporary, and this is, being moved, or it seems like there are a lot of things being juggled in terms of where you can camp, when you can camp, how long you can camp, that kind of stuff. And I was really interested in what kind of outreach the city is doing to provide this community the information they need to know in order to be compliant, not be in the riparian or avian zone, or whatever it is. How are we reaching out to that community to make sure that everyone gets the right information?
Yeah, we're definitely doing that work, and I think Kelly would probably be better suited to describe it to folks.
Yeah, I mean, we've created informational flyers that just let people know where you can and can't camp, and how to successfully camp in a certain area, what those criteria are. We have park ambassadors that share that information. As I mentioned, we met with social service providers, and they all have this information as well and can help disseminate it. But, one of the things that's challenging, I guess, right now, for example, in Washington Jefferson Park, it's just a lot of people just don't, they want to camp there, but they don't necessarily want to know how you can comply. And so I would say things have changed. Like, more and more people are sort of ripping up the information and, having a hard time hearing that, even if it's pretty basic level of things to comply. But we are talking about how to have, like, who are the right people to deliver that message in a place like, for example, WJ. Maybe the park ambassadors are not the right fit. Maybe we need a park host that can actually, as new people come in, help them understand what these rules are. And so, right now we're really looking for the most effective messenger. And I think we have an outreach team in the city, and I think they do a good job, but I think we need more people that maybe have experience being homeless, et cetera, that can really deliver that message in a way that it can be heard. So it's education outreach is a big component of this, so that people know, where they can be and how they can be successful, and then what the process is if they can't be, making sure that's really transparent. It's a lot of, it's kind of what I'm saying, like all of a sudden you have 70 people in one place. It's like just, it's a huge lift to try to communicate effectively with everybody and make sure they're hearing it, and just, it's a lot of work.
Yeah. Have y'all ever
We need help.
Yeah. Have y'all ever considered developing people in that community to be those communicators? So build,
I mean,
build
that's what we were,
yeah.
yeah, that's kind of what we were talking about today, even like what somebody like a park host, that's maybe someone that's recently been homeless that can be there in the park and help with that education piece. And how can we work with our partners that are social service providers to help provide that education? But yeah, we have talked about that. And like I said, building that internal capacity in the city to have folks that have that experience with homelessness or working with folks who are homeless who can help get that message out in a way that it can be heard.
Any other questions? I think the only thing that I just would add to this conversation is that, I mean, while this is a big challenge for parks, it's obviously a big challenge for our entire community, and our city organization is really grappling with this and trying to come up with new and innovative ways to approach this issue. And the Parks Division works with other divisions and other departments across the city, including EPD, but also our city manager's office and others, to try to collaborate and to solve this perplexing and complicated issue. And so it's certainly not going to go away, and we'll continue to talk about it. But I think we are making some improvements, and hopefully we'll see those improvements in the months and years to come, as far as especially the quality of our park system. So thanks for letting me share that and us to share that update. And I'll hand it back over to Carolyn.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that the rest stop program seems to be going really well. So we do have sites recognized in parks that have rest stops, and it's very organized and sort of somewhat self-managed, and those seem to be going really well, and that does seem to be a pretty successful model. And some of our folks might qualify to go into those. Some of our folks that camp in the parks, so I'm hopeful.
Kelly and Craig, thank you. I sit on the Poverty and Homeless Board. It would be helpful if perhaps in that next venue that you kind of shared your strategy and your approach. There's obviously people there from League, Lived Experience Group, and from others who could help be those ambassadors, or at least to facilitate, Play It Forward, et cetera, some other groups. So that I think it's encouraging. Again, it speaks to that adaptability, flexibility, trying to accommodate and trying to provide safe places for people. So again, I just appreciate your leadership and making that stuff happen, and any other venues to help people to understand what you're doing would, I think be valuable. It just shows the value of this, of the work you're doing.
Absolutely. It'd be great to talk a little bit more about that with you.
Thanks, you guys. There you have it, the glamorous to the nitty gritty. We got it all. So let's talk about what we would like to meet about in the future. The way that we set up our kind of schedule, we thought that springtime would be a good time to do a tour, and we weren't able to do that last year, and I think it might be questionable whether or not we can do it this year. I just wanted to throw it out there. Maybe Craig Smith, can you do you have any idea of whether or not like tours of Echo or Campbell could happen sometime?
I'd like to think they could in the right size group, you bet. I think especially at Echo, which is mostly outdoors, for sure. And maybe we'll look at group size and see what happens. We're talking April, March or April.
Maybe April?
Yeah, I got $10 that we're going to drop from Extreme High in April 1. So that'll mean a group of 15. So I think that would be great. I think that's really good timing for this group and the those two projects anyway. So but by what you all got going on in parks, there's a lot to tour too. So the rec facilities could be pretty easy to manage.
We could probably do a tour of the riverfront as well. I think we might have enough paved surfaces to be able to sort of navigate it more easily than muddy places. So I'm looking forward. So, ideally by April, we would have enough sidewalk to be able to sort of tour the full site to a greater extent. And they'd mostly be working on landscaping and planting and things like that. So we'll see. I think I'll just put that out there. And if the timing's right, well, we can do it.
So is the board interested in spring tours?
Yes. Yeah, I'd love to.
Okay. You're like, get me out of here.
Yeah. Get me outside.
Yes. Okay. Well, we will strive for that, and so we'll work towards that and be in contact about that. I had a couple others. We were talking possible agenda items. One being starting to think about sustainable funding mechanisms, and if that's something that this group would like to be involved with, we would love to have your input. And so we can plan for when we should get that conversation started. Are people interested in that? I think I'm seeing head nods. Yes. Okay, great. And then Scott, I was thinking, and Kelly texted me too, that maybe a little more information about the Eugene Parks Foundation and the great work that you guys have done. I think it'd be nice to showcase that in an upcoming meeting.
Yeah, I was talking, but nobody could hear me. Yes, love to. Just let me know when and we'll prepare something.
Okay, that sounds good. So those are two topics plus a tour. Any other items that people are curious about and would like to learn more about or talk about?
I would just like to say, this is a really nice thing to be involved in such kind of a hard time, right? So nice to see something building in a positive direction, and the staff and all of you have done such a nice job on this. So thank you for that. And it's really nice to be a part of it. And you see the community members out there in the parks, and it's a really very positive thing in an otherwise difficult time. So thank you.
Thank you, Jill. It's awesome. Let's see. Ethan, when should we meet next?
Well, we've mentioned April as a possibility.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say the farther into April we go, the more likely we are to be able to be in a scenario where we'll be able to actually meet in person for some form of a tour, or the safer it will be.
Mm-hmm.
So if we stick with the Tuesday at 4 p.m. Routine that we have, I'm looking at either the 20th, hold on, wrong month.
Yeah, that's
the 20th of April or the 27th of April.
I'm available for both times.
Let's go with the 20th and see if anyone is not available on the 20th as of now.
I guess the only case, I think I should be available. There's a chance I may not be available on the 20th, but I think I'll be wide open on the 27th. I guess the case may be made to move it back a week again. I don't know if a week will make a difference, but pushing it a little towards summer, more vaccines out there, that type of thing.
27th, we're landing on the 27th. Thumbs up. All right, I see no nays. So let's go for 20. Well, I'll send out a reminder sometime this week as a placeholder, and we'll do the usual. We'll provide an update as we get closer to the date to remind everyone.
Great.
Is that okay with you, Carolyn? Does that work?
That's great. Very efficient. Thank you, Ethan. Scheduled. And then I will be following up with the email draft of the advisory board cover letter to our report that will go to the city manager, and a copy of our final audit letter, our nice short audit letter. And so we'll be in touch that way. And I'll also be in touch to let you know when we're confirmed with the city council. So you can tune into that if you choose. So with that, it was great seeing you all.
Yeah. Ditto.
Before we go, I have to say that I am so impressed with this team. The issues that you're dealing with, from, you know, homeless encampments all the way to like the ecology of an area, to where the lighting is shining. It doesn't go too far out into the, you know, surrounding ecology. And then you've got the actual physical stuff that you're building. And I'm just so impressed. It really seems like a positive group of people doing a really good job. So just wanted to say thanks to you all, because I'm really impressed. Yeah.
Ditto.
Thank you. That means a ton.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Very, very appreciated.
It really shows. So yeah.
Yep,
Thank you.
it does.
Thank you. That's huge.
Yeah. Well, with that, have a good night, everyone. And we'll be talking soon.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.